Hi, welcome to Promo Insiders, an ASI Media podcast covering the topics that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm Executive Editor Sarah Lewandowski, and today I'm joined by Margot Conrose, CMO of Sky, a commerce intelligence platform that powers brand insights, decisions, and execution for faster and more predictable go-to-market outcomes. We'll be speaking today about the value of brand stunts for marketing strategy. So thank you, Margot, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So here at ASI Media, we keep tabs on brand stunts, particularly those that involve branded merchandise. And we had talked before about a recent one that was at Panera Bread, where they released a swim soup collection with soup-themed swimwear and a bread bowl-shaped pool float. In celebration, they said, of those who purchase soup from Panera, even in the hot summer months.
hmm
So it was for a very niche market segment, and it sold out immediately, like in a matter of days. So it was a very short lived campaign, but here we are a few weeks later, still talking about it. So it is having an impact. So let's talk first about brand stunts in general. What is the definition of a brand stunt?
A brand stunt is really, any kind of out of the box marketing strategy. We used to call it guerrilla marketing. Something that is unexpected and can break through the noise and create buzz. I think that's the key here. Is a stunt is for the purpose of creating buzz. So exactly what we're talking about with Panera. Are they going into clothing long term? Probably not. Although we are seeing some of these, kind of interesting forays into new product categories from brands, especially over the last year. But really, it's about, they want to get people talking, and they want to make a splash in a time where maybe it's hard to break through. Maybe their product category is saturated. Maybe their brand is not that innovative or interesting right now. So a stunt is a way to, kind of make a splash very quickly, and do something that's gonna get people's attention and get them talking about the brand again.
Gotcha. So, along those same lines, what is the core strategy of a stunt? And also, does a brand have to have a certain cachet for it to come off well? Like, can there be like kind of a sleeper brand that has a really great stunt that maybe, becomes very recognizable once they undertake that stunt?
Totally. I mean, I think actually cachet can, work against a brand
Mm.
because you have so much to lose. So, if you've already got this very, deeply rooted, beloved kind of established brand, it's hard to do something unexpected and get away with it. You have to do tons of research in advance. Whereas, a sleeper brand or just a more niche brand has a lot of opportunity to play around. And, it's almost like they have nothing to lose, as long as they're methodical and they're data driven and they're not, taking risks, that are going to offend people. So no, I don't think you need a certain cachet to do it well. You do, potentially need resources to pull something off well. You need to have a certain degree of kind of pre-planning and research, which requires a certain level of data, sophistication, the ability to kind of leverage insights, know where the market is, know where consumers are, so that you can navigate it well. But really, the strategy is about getting, as I said before, getting people talking. And usually the way to do that is by using social channels, doing something that is going to kind of trend well, use humor, or something kind of out of the box in terms of where your product is expected to be. Um, and the ROI of it is usually about a lot more than sales. So, Panera, yes, they sold out right away. Maybe they got a nice little bump, from selling some swimsuits, as opposed to a $25 swimsuit, as opposed to a $5 bowl of soup. But that probably wasn't the goal, right? Like, this probably wasn't a big, kind of revenue, centric campaign for them. It was really about social and getting younger people potentially talking and really sharing. So, the anything that you do that involves social media is really about getting your audience to advertise for you, right? So it's kind of shaking up the lines between paid, owned, and earned media. And if you can get, your audience is posting and driving the conversation and reacting in any way, shape, or form, then it's got a lot more shelf life, and potentially you're earning a lot of new audiences that you weren't able to tap into before. I
Mhm.
think that's
Mhm.
what it's usually about.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, they do tend to be, they tend to be short-lived, and the engagement is kind of driven up in a quick time frame. So
Mhm.
there's a certain marketing impact to that short-lived nature of a stunt. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, be very thoughtful, I think, in advance about what impact you're trying to achieve. So, is it, new audiences? Is it, new customers? Are you trying to break into a customer base that maybe you didn't have access to before? And then, think about how are you going to measure those gains? Is it about driving a sales bump to a very specific product for a very, kind of short period of time? So, if you're kind of a mainstay product and you don't typically have a lot of spikes or dips in your sales, maybe you use a stunt to try to grab some very quick growth. um, or maybe it's about creating this ongoing conversation, using a hashtag or something, some kind of tagging strategy on social media, so that it just continues to snowball and you can kind of build some momentum after that. Um, or maybe it's about gathering data, because just by seeing who reacts to your campaign, who engages, who doesn't, what it can do to your numbers and what it can't, you're gaining a whole lot of information that about your brand, about your how your persona is received, what types of marketing kind of work, and what doesn't. So that alone can be the kind of the end game. Um, I think any of those things are valid. It's just about really, when you go in, this is a short period of time in which we aim to achieve X, um, and then make sure that you can measure that. So have strategies in place so that you can look back and say, was this successful? Was it not? How iterative is it as a strategy? Can we take some learnings here and reapply them or try again? I'm a big believer in stuff that's agile and iterative. Like, I think that the days of really high stakes, big investments in marketing campaigns that are, gonna sink or swim are kind of over. We have to be able to throw things at the wall quickly, see what catches on, learn, adapt. Um, so I think, stunts can fit that bill very nicely. You can do smaller scale stunts, or you can do larger scale stunts. An example of like a smaller scale one, for example, that I saw recently, when Jeff Bezos went to space a couple weeks ago. Um, Mercado Libre, right, which is sort of a competitor to Amazon in LATAM. Um, they did like a space takeover of their website and some really cute marketing around, for the rest of us who are here on Earth, we'll get your packages to you by the time Jeff Bezos comes down from space. So, they did like a website takeover and some very targeted social media ad copy. And you could consider it a stunt because they took advantage of a moment in time. They tried to, leverage off of something that was happening and get a quick boost for themselves. But it was very low investment, right? Like low risk, potentially high yield to try to make a big impact. And, kind of the leader in the space was kind of putting itself out there, even if Bezos is no longer at Amazon, still very much associated with the brand.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I'm curious too, like, and you had mentioned a few minutes ago about, making sure that the tone is right, that it's not going to like offend people, that kind of thing. I'm curious when a brand is considering a stunt, and it sounds like that's part of it. What needs to be kind of determined beforehand? Objectives, tone, audience. Can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, all of those things. I think, foremost, you got to know your brand. So, in order for a stunt to be successful, it has to feel authentic. So, if you're a company that, is not edgy, that plays it very, very safe in terms of voice and tone, and all of a sudden you're out there, kind of doing something that some people are going to really laugh at and some people are going to be, really turned off by, then not only, are you going to risk upsetting a lot of people. Um, but also you're going to be perceived as inauthentic. So it's like you kind of can't win that way, right? So know who you are and be true to it. If you're already an edgy brand that knows base very, very well and caters just to that base, kind of deliberately at the expense of any other types of customers, then by all means lean in hard to your personality and do something funny or risky or kind of out there. So I think first of all, and first of all, in general, customers are judgy today, right? And they're quick to say, whether a brand is authentic or not. So, and then when you put yourself out there with a stunt, the brand is that much more vulnerable. So, authenticity, I think, is number one. Two is really knowing who you're targeting. So, who are you going after, and how do they think and feel? And so, if you're gonna, kind of do something that is timely. For example, like the Mercado Libre example I just shared. Um, how do your customers feel about, a billionaire going to space for fun? Are they like all for it, or does it, feel a little bit wrong? And if it feels a little bit wrong, then by all means, like double click on that and lean into it and make them feel something that much more. So know your target audience and, kind of know what you hope to get out of them in reaction to a stunt. Because a stunt is always going to be about stirring up something, emotions, get people feeling and thinking something.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, I think another thing is just, I spoke to it a little bit before, but like, what ROI are you looking for? Know what you're going after, and be very, very clear about managing expectations even internally, um, around what is considered a success for this campaign. So is it just enough to get a ton of social shares? Is it enough to get kind of the brand trending on social media? Are you looking to sell out your collection? I wonder if it even matters if Panera sold out the swim soups or not, right? um, but if you're going for something that's going to feel like limited edition and culty around your brand, I think it was Taco Bell I saw is doing clothing as well, a whole collection of designer clothing. Certainly they're going for a, a product drop feeling with that line. So I think it's all about getting bang for your buck. Is all about kind of knowing those things going in and planning and designing a stunt that's going to really check all of those boxes, and then from there it's kind of out there in the world. It's for your audience to decide what to do with how big it can get.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about how a brand stunt comes with a certain vulnerability because you're putting yourself out there and you're asking people for a reaction, and it's a bit
Hmm.
risky. So, and I'm curious about, for you, some examples recently of brand stunts that you've really liked that you thought went off well, and others that were more flops.
Yeah. I saw a really beautiful one, I thought, maybe a week or two ago, from a CBD brand called Charlotte's Web.
Hmm.
And, their whole thing is to try to destigmatize their products and associate them with wellness. Um, and so they they put like a vending machine with CBD products at the top of a 400-foot landmark in Utah, the Castleton Tower. And it's basically like the top of a mountain. And the idea was that anybody who kind of got to the top had access. We had this nice surprise of this vending machine with these like soothing balms and things like that for overworked muscles and athletes who biked or hiked or whatever to the top. Um, and the way they did it, though, was I think it took something like 2 years to produce, because just getting the machine to the top of the mountain was this logistical nightmare,
Mm.
slash feat. And so, and it was also just like beautiful scenery. So they really tapped into kind of the emotional motivation of climbers and athletes and feeling like they accomplished something. And they used the logistics of getting the machine to the top as part of the campaign. They videoed the entire process, and they made this really aspirational, beautiful video that also then showed, kind of climbers interacting with the products at the top. And so, they tapped into emotion and definitely went for a big feel without kind of trying to do something too risky or edgy or risk upsetting anybody.
Mm.
So that was kind of a nice one. Um, there have been some, I think, that have very famously flopped. Um, I mean, really, like the worst one was a long, long time ago in the 80s. United Way did this big kind of fundraising stunt trying to raise money, and it was about like achieving a Guinness World Record. Um, and they released millions of balloons into the air over Cleveland. Do you know about this one?
I've
And
never heard of this
ugh,
one.
it was like a
That
really
sounds
bad
terrible.
story. It was like everything that could go wrong went wrong, and the balloons like blocked all the visibility and interacted with the weather and like caused it so that the Coast Guard couldn't rescue these fishermen that were out at sea because they couldn't see because of the balloons and the
Wha
cover, the cloud cover.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, people died. It was bad. And stuff
Wow.
like that today, I think is it's more rare because we have a lot more signals to work with. We have a lot more data to kind of predict things like obviously weather. Um, but these things still happen. Another one that was kind of more timely and recent was Airbnb over the pandemic asked guests to send kindness cards to hosts, basically like thank you notes, I guess, um, and it really rubbed a lot of people wrong during the pandemic when people were hurting in so many different ways and, from businesses to personal things. And they were like, what is the nerve of this company asking me to send a thank you note to a company that has, crushed a lot of business for anybody in the hospitality industry and stuff like that. And they were just mocked like crazy over social media. So there they thought they were pretty safe doing something that everyone was going to see as like, touchy feely, happy, warm and fuzzy. And it was complete backlash. So that's where like know where people are at, right? Like know what the sentiment is right now. If people are kind of a little testy right now, maybe it's not the time to ask something of them, but to give to them the way that Charlotte's Web company did, I think is typically a better strategy.
And I think too, to your point, like you can, because of social media, like you as even if the brand is a smaller company, you have to be careful because one,
Mm-hmm.
that those tweets or whatever can start piling on. And even if you're a smaller company, you don't have to be like a household name to get a bad reputation over social
Yes,
media, you know? Like it can
it's so true.
yeah, it just can grow very quickly and get out of hand. Yeah.
Totally. And I've been asked a couple of times lately, like, well, isn't any press good press? So like even if a brand stunt goes awry, isn't it still a success if you get people talking one way or the other? And I think that really is kind of old school conventional wisdom about branding and marketing in general, but not
Yeah.
today. No, like I don't think any press is good press. And,
Mm-mm.
I think customers are very quick to drop a brand if they find them to be insensitive
Yeah.
or stand for something that customers don't believe in. It's a lot of blurred lines today between personal and social issues and consumerism and where we spend our money. So yeah, to your point, it's more like notoriety and that's at risk, and I
Sure.
don't think that's a good strategy today for any brand.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and you had mentioned a few minutes ago as well about, things are evolving, they're changing. Those kinds of marketing philosophies are kind of they're changing as well, especially with social media and how quick things are. And like you had said, it's there is a lot of opportunity for kind of quick hits now, and it's not
Hmm.
so much like years and years in the making these huge marketing campaigns. Those are still around, obviously, but there's more opportunity, like you said, for these smaller quick hits. Can you talk a little bit about how we're going to see brand stunts moving forward, or how they'll be evolving over the next few years?
I think it's going to be a lot more about stunts that you can pull off digitally versus in person, kind of physical things. Just the nature of the world in general, everything has moved so digital, and that's, just accelerated like gangbusters in the last couple of
Mhm.
years, right? So in the last year alone, really. So I think it's going to be a lot more about, how can we use digital experiences, digital properties to pull off some of these stunts, with all the fast food chicken sandwich wars that have been happening this year too. You saw product drops that were, all the marketing and all the kind of actual customer acquisition happened online. It was about, misspelling. One of the brands, created a website that had the URL that was a misspell of their competitor's brand. And, that was their way to say, if you get to this website, you get a coupon for a free sandwich. Stuff like that, where the entire interaction with the customer, the entire engagement, and the stunt happens online. I think is where we're going to start to see more, because it's easy. First of all, it's a lot lighter of a lift than putting a vending machine on the top of a mountain. Um, and there's a lot more room to correct errors. There's a lot more, kind of speed to iterate when you're talking about digital properties. So, stuff like that, where it starts online and then maybe there's kind of a physical merchandise component that comes in to kind of, finish the job. um, even the Panera example was like that, right? I mean, really, all of the work happened online, and then the only thing to be done was the actual physical product, which at the end of the day is sort of the least of the campaign. So I think we're going to see more of that, and I think for better or worse, we're going to see um, lower risks, kind of less edgy, less out there campaigns, just because consumers are so sensitive right now, and so quick to go off a brand if it doesn't rub them the right way. So I think we're going to see some safer, maybe a return to safer um, marketing than we've had for the last 10 years. And, I say for better or worse, because it might be a little less fun and creative than some of the campaigns that brands used to be able to get away with.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Margot. We really appreciate your time today. And for more marketing strategy tips, please head to asicentral.com/news. Thanks for listening.